All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about a frustration that I think we all share, that feeling of seeing the same horrible problems happen over and over and over again. This explainer is all about a totally different way of thinking about safety, one that moves it from just being about luck or chance to being about smart, intentional design.
Yeah, this is the big question, isn't it? We see these destructive patterns everywhere, and it feels like no matter what we do, they just keep coming back. We're always playing catch up. So, what kind of patterns are we talking about here?
Well, for starters, think about the pattern of a serial killer. It's this terrifying sequence that can go on for months, sometimes even years. And why? Because the system itself, the way different police departments and data sources talk to each other, or don't, has these massive blind spots that allow the killer to just slip through the cracks.
Or hey, how about the con man? This pattern isn't violent, but it can be just as devastating. It works by exploiting tiny loopholes in our financial or social systems. And here's the crazy part. Even when you catch one, another one just pops up, maybe using a slightly different trick to attack the exact same weakness. And then there's this one, the pattern that is just so tragically, horribly familiar. The school shooter. It's a recurring nightmare we've tried to solve with drills, with awareness campaigns, with counseling. And yet, the pattern continues. So why aren't our solutions working? Well, it's because we've been focused on completely the wrong thing.
For decades, our whole approach has been to chase the behavior. We try to figure out who might do something bad, we watch for warning signs, and then we try to intervene with that specific person. This is the old way of thinking.
And there's a formal name for this, right? It's called behavioral intelligence, or BI for short. It is all about focusing on the actor, the individual. It asks questions like, who is the threat? And how can we change what they're planning to do? And on the surface, that sounds pretty logical. But it has some deep, fundamental flaws. The problem is, this approach is always reactive. It only kicks in after a threat has already been identified. It depends on people being constantly, perfectly vigilant, which is, well, it's exhausting and it's impossible. And because it's all about behavior, a smart attacker can just change their tactics to fly right under the radar. It's basically a band-aid, not a permanent fix. So if chasing behavior is the old way, what's the new way? It is a complete paradigm shift. I mean, a real game changer. We stop trying to fix the person and we start fixing the system they're operating inside of. This is called structural intelligence, or SI. And here, the focus isn't on the who at all. It's on the how. SI asks a totally different question. How is this terrible thing even possible in the first place? And then it redesigns the whole environment to make it impossible. It literally doesn't care what someone's intent is because the opportunity to act on it has been completely engineered away. The best way to get your head around this is with an engineering analogy. You don't prevent a bridge from collapsing by putting up a sign that says, "Hey trucks, please be more careful." No way. You re-engineer the bridge to handle the load. SI just applies that exact same logic to our social systems. It makes safety a feature, not a request. But look, this isn't just a nice philosophy or some abstract idea. The difference between these two approaches is real, and more importantly, it's measurable. We can actually score a system's resilience. So how in the world do you put a number on safety? How do you actually prove that one system is fundamentally more secure than another? The answer is something called the Structural Intelligence Index, or SII. It's a tool that grades any system across 5 really critical areas. For instance, it measures detection lag. That's how fast a threat is spotted. And actor adaptation. Basically, can a bad guy just find a simple workaround? It also looks at the system's vulnerabilities, how long the protection lasts, and how much of the environment it actually covers. It gives you a complete picture. So get this. When you take a typical school safety program, one that's based on that old BI model of watching for warning signs and doing drills, and you run it through the index, it scores a 34 out of 100. I mean, that is a failing grade. It just confirms what we intuitively already know. These systems are leaky and reactive. Okay, now look at this. A proposed system built from the ground up on structural intelligence principles scores a 94. This isn't just a little bit better. This is a quantum leap. It's the difference between hoping for safety and virtually guaranteeing it. I mean, the difference is just staggering when you see it like this. On the left, you've got a system based on vigilance and hope. And on the right, you have a system based on engineering and certainty. It's not even in the same league.
And when you break down the numbers, it's a blowout in every single category. For example, look at actor adaptation, a perfect 10 for the SI system. That means it works no matter how an attacker tries to change their tactics. And persistence is also a 10, meaning the fix doesn't degrade or get weaker over time. This is the power of designing a better system.
So, what does a system that scores a 94 actually look like? This isn't science fiction. It's a practical, real-world blueprint for safety.
So, for a school, what does this actually look like? Well, think of it as a system with 3 core layers that all work together. First, you have the brain, a unified threat interface that connects school data, police data, and firearm data all in real time. Second, you have the gatekeeper, a single, controlled entry point with ID verification for everyone. And third, you have the nervous system. These are what we call environmental tripwires. Think of them as smart sensors that can detect a forced door, or even the acoustic signature of a firearm, and trigger an instant automatic lockdown. No human has to make a call or push a button. The system just reacts.
So here's the bottom line. It all comes down to a choice. We can keep leaving our safety up to chance, or we can start building it, by design, into the very fabric of our institutions. This really is the fundamental shift. We move from chasing problems to preventing them permanently. We move from safety being a promise to safety being a built-in feature. We stop depending on fallible human vigilance and start depending on verifiable system integrity.
And this has a huge effect on society. Because when people see that safety and fairness aren't just things leaders talk about, but are things that have been carefully engineered and proven with data, their trust in those institutions skyrockets. It's about delivering on the most basic responsibility. So, I'll just leave you with this final question to think about. What would our world look like if we decided that safety was simply too important to be left to chance? What if we started demanding that it become a structural guarantee, engineered into every school, every workplace, every public space? That's the future that structural intelligence makes possible.